all of the speakers back onto the stage, please. So if you could just come back up. We've had quite a few questions come in. We are going to try and get through as many as we possibly can. We've got about 10 to 15 minutes, so it depends on how long the answers take. We'll get through as many as we possibly can. I tell you what. No, I'll stand. Give me those questions back. Has everyone got a seat? Come down this end, guys. Yeah, this is the time when you get your rotten fruit out and what have you, and you choose your victim. Preferably not me, please. Yeah. So, as I say, we have been collating questions throughout the day. I think we've got at least 15 questions here, which we're not going to get through all of them, so I'm just going to take them as they come through. I'm going to answer some. I'm going to pass it on to whoever I think is the right person. But if anybody within the panel wants to speak up, just raise your hand and grab the mic. More than happy to do all of that. So hopefully the technology works. First question. If the audience is representative of the industry, why are there so many non-applicables? Absolutely. That must come from you, Heidi. Yes, I would agree with you. I'll take this question. I think you're absolutely right. The answer to the question is that we have lots of people here from the media, from systems houses and what have you, and those questions weren't particularly applicable to them. So, but thank you very much for the question anyway, you. It did indeed, it did indeed. Maybe there's lots of people out for a good day out rather than window fabricators and installers. There you go. But well, thank you very much for the question anyway. I've been asked several times, can I have a copy of the slides being used today? The answer is the old presentation is on a thing called Prezi, so it's not PowerPoint, so we can't actually send it out. What we can do, if anybody wants a copy of the slides, if they approach any of the EdTech people, generally the people wearing these ties, and just or send me an email, and we'll send you a copy, hard copy of the slides. So you can have them by all means. It's just that you can't have a copy of this because it's non-transferable. Okay. Right. Next one. A lot has been said about PVC windows, but what about the implications for aluminium timber? I think Joe picked up on that earlier on, and I'm going to put him on the spot because he did fill my arse earlier on and tried to embarrass me. So it's my turn to get him back. Joe, over to you. Joe Haig, silent.
Yeah, Google it. Clearly, my level of expertise on timber and timber, especially but aluminium, not so bad. But the data doesn't support any conclusions really. I think there is an effect on everybody. I don't know. Put your hand up if you're in timber window manufacturing. Are you here?
There's a few.
There's a few. So I think the implications for the timber industry are pretty much mirrored across the board. The implications about weight, cost, getting your structures right, production processes. I don't traditionally know that much about the production processes, but it's not too hard to assume that timber comes in as a given product. It has to be pre-processed, and that pre-processing means that to accommodate triple glazing is a variant to double. So there are implications there. Cost and weight seems to be the constant driver. Thank you for the question.
I think also an aluminium system, to be fair, most of the aluminium systems that we have in the UK do come from Europe. So there's a lot of triple glazing already used in commercial glazing. So a lot of the systems are already ready or pre-ready for those triple glazed sealed units at the wider levels, whereas obviously PVC, quite clearly, we heard Mark say earlier on that, you know, they were never designed to take triple glazed sealed units, so we're trying to sort of wedge those in, if you like, and it looks like that's going to be at the expense of aesthetics. So, you know, I think aluminium maybe, and again, I think from one of the other polls that we saw, when we spoke to people about triple glazing, you know, 100% were in replacements. Is there that much aluminium going into replacement? I know there's some going into replacements now, into replacement windows. But again, is it a different, slightly different market, or is it more sort of commercial market, which again have been more used to this? And then timber, you're absolutely right, Joe. There are very few systems out there, as in linear systems. You know, you buy a block of wood and you design it out of there, cut from a die. So I suppose, based on that, you could argue that it would be easier for the timber guys to adapt their systems, because they're not having to rely on the PVC systems houses to actually redesign the windows and lay the tooling and everything else for that. So hopefully that answers the question. Yes, of course you can. Thank you. So there's your answer. Okay. Oh God, I love the questions about the GGF. Nigel, when would the GGF be producing a visual standards leaflet for trike glazing? I'm guessing that's a typo, but I'm guessing it's supposed to say triple glazing.
Sure. Well, certainly we've...
Do you want to into the mic, please?
Cheers. We've been reviewing a number of our documents where we had, specifically with regards to double glazing, bringing them together into a single document. We've also had a working party running for quite some time now, looking at how we amend our datasheet 4.10 to bring in triple glazing. That working party has now finished its activities. The document's now about to go to our standards committee to look at the content and ascertain if any other changes are needed. So there's every opportunity that could be produced in 4 or 6 weeks, probably.
Well, you heard it here first. Within the next 4 to 6 weeks, you're going to have that. Okay. Hands up if you believe them. Okay. Okay, thank you, Nigel. Next question. Okay, we seem to have skipped one there. First presentation indicated 16mm airspace was the most efficient. Why does the industry then stand on 20mm? Because bigger is better. Got to be, ain't it? And that's what we were sold so many years ago. You know, that was, you know, I remember when we used to sell a 412 sealed unit, and then all of a sudden, it wasn't Chris's fault on this one, but it was his company, did turn around and said, bigger is better. So all of a sudden, we went from 412.4 to 416.4, and in many cases, we actually went from 4 to 424. And we can all technically say that we made it worse. We made it more expensive, and we made it worse. Didn't we do well? However, I can also tell you as a spacer bar manufacturer, 63% of everything I produce is 20mm spacer. So we have got form for this, haven't we? You know, we have got form for giving things away. So we might want to just look at that. But again, I mean, I don't know whether Mark or anybody else wants to pitch in on there. I mean, is there Mark at the end there. Can you just pass me?
I think just echoing what you've said there, I remember the time, you know, when a 50mm system was the standard, and then these 70mm came in, and so on. There has been progress throughout, you know, the years in our industry, but very often it's not been for the good of the industry, and that is a particular one. I remember fighting the case of, you know, a 24mm unit is better than a 28mm unit, but once ours is 28. So you've got to be careful that we're not creating the same thing again, and particularly in this, especially with converting your 28mm double glaze unit into a 28mm triple glaze. That's better. It isn't. And again, we'll end up getting a bad name again as an industry. We need to make the sales, but we need to improve our products and get buy-in from customers to support us there. So we've got to be careful.
Well, it was certainly a short-term gain for some conversion, sales to lead conversion rates, but long-term, it's damaged this industry. You're absolutely right. We made the unit worse, or worse performing, I should say, and it cost all of the IG manufacturers. There's a lot of IG manufacturers we saw earlier on. Hands up if you get any more money for a 28mm sealed unit more than a 24mm sealed unit. Oh. Not one person raises their hand, and yet it costs us more money to manufacture, clearly. So if we are going to do triple glazing, let's make sure we sell the right triple glazing at the right price. Absolutely. And Mark, I was just actually going to say, what improvements can be achieved by utilising 16mm airspace without the difficulties of triple glazing? Can you answer that, or do I just throw you there?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to add something on the first point, which was we're probably being a little bit hard on ourselves. The 16mm cavity, which I sort of alluded to a few times within my presentation, that 16mm cavity is based around the use of argon. And we probably have to remember that when the decisions of the industry to move towards a 20mm cavity some years ago, not many people were putting argon in the cavity then. So if you've got a 16 or a 20mm cavity which is full of air, really the performance question is not really an issue. It's just when you're putting argon in the cavity, that's when 16mm is an important dimension.
And agreed, but it didn't, when we added that extra cost from 16mm, even 12mm to 20mm, we didn't improve the performance either. It was just bigger is better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So again, we do have form for it. So thank you, Mark, for that. And just on the bottom part, I said, what improvements can be achieved by utilising 16mm airspace without the difficulties of triple glazing? And we spoke about clever glazing earlier on, and I think Mark demonstrated earlier on what can be achieved with clever glazing and with some eco bling. Let's also remember the eco bling also adds cost to it. Yeah, it's not free. If you want that A+ window, and you have to, whether you go triple glazing or whether you go with the eco bling, then there is an additional cost. Let's not conveniently forget that eco bling's cost.
It's not just the cost as well, Andy, that needs to be considered. A lot of those products are additions within the window manufacturing process, so it's important to make sure that cost is added in as well. A lot of those things, I mean, one of the examples we used was the centre seal gasket that sits between the cavity. In a lot of cases, that might be applied by adhesive or a double-sided tape. We lost gasketers many years ago. When we moved to PC and rolled-in systems, you're now looking to add some of those processes back into the window production. So not only just important to add the cost of the product, but also the additional labour to add those items as well.
Again, agreed. Playing devil's advocate, it's much more difficult to sit in someone's house and sell them a piece of thermal reinforcing than it is to sell them the third piece of glass. As I said, salesmen can be very lazy. 3 panes are better than 2. Bit of 28mm is better than 24mm. Big is better. 3 is better than 2. Whereas if you've got to go and sit there and have a technical sale with Mr. and Mrs. Jones, my mum and dad again, about thermal inserts, this and whatever, all of that eco bling on, I think it's a more difficult sale. Whereas I think it's an easier sale, which I think what Chris was saying earlier on, when you can turn around and say, yeah, I've got triple glazing in my windows, rather than I've got thermal inserts in my windows, which you can't actually see, but it does improve the window. So, but again, I agree, it's not just about window energy ratings. I think it's about consumer perception and what they perceive to add the value. And I do think that, you will see 3 panes is better than 2. Maybe Mike wants to chip in, as a director of a retail company. Maybe you have a thought on that.
Actually, I have. I've just been making notes, listening to people, what our next retail advert is going to be saying. I've just designed it while we were speaking. So thank you for the room for that and for my fellow pals. Yeah, there's opportunities to promote, I believe, clever glazing as opposed to triple glazing, just to differentiate now. Thank you very much for that, Mark. I owe you one. Was it Andy? Andy, I owe you one. It's a shame that, because I know you're going to the pigs tonight, so I'll have to honour my promise now. And going back to bigger has to be better. I remember when we made the switch at Weatherseal from 24mm to 28mm, and part of it was we didn't really care about competition in those days. Weatherseal was direct marketing. It was tell can, door can, 4-hour sales pictures, sell on the night, very much nasty double glazing, but it made a lot of money in those days. The switch to 28mm for us, Mark touched on it this morning, was for aesthetics. It actually looked better than a 24mm bead. And I think you made that point this morning, that point this morning, Mark.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question. Isn't the key issue that direct salespeople do not arguably and cannot sell anything complex? That is why triple will be a great seller. Selling 3 is better than 2 to Mrs. Smith, not my mum this time, will boost sales. Well, you know, that's what I think, as I said before. I do actually believe that will be the case. It is such a simple sell. But again, maybe I'm wrong, and I'll be proved to be wrong in the future. But I do think that's the way that most salespeople will sell going forward. 3 is better than 2, but I do share Mark's concerns. 3 and a 28mm triple glazed sealed unit is extremely dangerous. Extremely dangerous. I'm going to pass this one on to Steve. Here we go. Is it true that the dB reduction on triple over double is only 1 dB and the human ear can only hear a difference of 3 dB? Yep.
As a general rule, the human ear can only detect a 3 dB difference. What was the rest of the question? That was the question.
That was the question. Is it true? Well, is it true that the dB reduction on triple over double is only 1 dB?
True at the sorry.
Is it true that the dB reduction on triple over double is only 1 dB, and the human ear can only hear 3 dB?
Yeah, that's about right. Unless you're looking at adding different thicknesses of glass or laminates or sound control laminates into your unit, you're probably looking about 1 dB improvement, and the ear generally can't detect that.
And again, I mean, call me an old skeptic here, but you know, I still believe that people will advertise improved noise attenuation, because it is a slight improvement. However inaudible it is, and we should never forget, you know, never get really confused between marketing and reality. You know, just because, you know, as I said, we made it worse before, and we still sold it as an improvement. So any improvement, you could argue, is better than no improvement. The fact that a dog can't hear it is irrelevant. It's still an improvement. But that's the marketeer in me, and I'm sure some of the marketing people in this room may also go down that route as well. You know, I would say you'd be extremely, if you got called into a court of law, you might be on a slightly sticky wicket there. But I don't know, again, but certainly it's a product for kennels. There you go. Right. This is a really good question. How much will the homeowner actually save a year with triple glazing over an A-rated double glazed window? Would it be as much as a saving as going from an A to C? If so, according to the GGF online calculator, for a typical 4-bed detached house, that's only about $26.99 a year. Unless we give it away free, it's surely unsellable. Does anybody want to have a pop at that one? There are. What do I say about marketeers? You know, so, it is true. And again, I'm sure those figures are absolutely right. I don't disbelieve the GGF figures at all. But we could also turn around and say, well, how come 60% of all windows today are sold as A-rated? If that's the difference, how are you justifying that? You know, this is surely about perception from the consumer. and value that's built into your product in the sales pitch. And that's what I would have thought. Maybe we don't do a good enough job in that selling A-rated windows. Maybe that's very much the case. I think Nigel might have a...
Well, no, what I was going to say, I mean, I can't speak for the actual figure that was there because I don't know the calculator off by heart, but when we set the calculator up, it was designed for standard replacement of either a single glazed window or a pre-2002 double glazed window, and what you were changing it to. We weren't considering triple glazing at the time, and I don't think we've actually got triple glazing data on the calculator. But what that figure may be is the difference, the increase if you've gone from changing a window to a B to changing the window to an A. I'm not sure. I don't know where the 26 actually comes into. No.
Well, I think it's as far as I understand it, it's the difference. If you have a C-rated window versus an A-rated window, the difference per year is 26 quid. So I'm guessing that an A to an A plus is going to be less. If there's 20 points in between an A to a C, and there's only 10 points between an A plus to an A, it's going to be less than that. So, you know, I'm guessing that the saving will be considerably less. I don't know. I've got some nods over there from the build check boys. Yeah. Correct? So... So it's about the same saving. I suppose, thank you. So, you know, you're going to save an extra 26 quid. So if you get an extra £3 for it, the saving, woo, and there we go. But again, I go back to perception. You know, I bought I've told this story so many times before, 4, 5, 6 years ago, bought one of those big fridges, you know, those big silver things, and walked in, manager special, 299 quid or whatever it was at the time. I said, I'll have one of those. My wife said, no, you won't. I want that A-rated one. Well, why? It's exactly the same. But yeah, it's better. It's A-rated. When I looked at it, it was going to save me £2.87 a year. Yeah? It cost me an extra 160 quid. So as long as I keep that fridge for another 65 years, I'm quids in. Yeah? And I know better. And I'll still pay for it. So, you know, it's about perception, isn't it? But... as an industry, we are chasing ever better thermal performance of the old window, but not the sealing of the window into the fabric of the building, which is a thermal bridge. What measures can we, or are being taken to address this aspect? This is, I don't know if anybody wants to take this one, or I can. This is absolutely true. I mean, when you actually think there's the energy rating system, I'm not going to call it flawed, but it does have gaps in it. You know, quite literally gaps around the edge. Yeah, and also when we put a vent air in there, obviously we don't take that into account either within window energy ratings. So yeah, a poorly fitted A+ window may as well be single glazed, because it's still going to be a drafty window at the end of the day. So should this be part of a window energy rating scheme or a window scheme? I don't know. Oh, that's Nigel. If he thinks that's a potential, where you might consider doing that, where the actual fitting is part of the rating itself. Is that even feasible to do that?
I'm not sure it is feasible, because the whole aspect of a window energy rating is a simulation on a window standing alone, and not based on what it's being fitted into, whether it's being fitted into, you know, a single wall as opposed to a cavity wall, and those sorts. So that would have different aspects and different implications on the window. So I think the rating can only be on the window as it stands. But totally agree, if it's wrongly installed, as with any product, if it's wrongly installed, it ceases to be the product you're expecting. There
are certainly products out there that I've seen which are expanding type foams that you just pre-installation, you apply to the window, you fit the window, you screw it as normal, obviously take off the backing, and it expands to the brick or to whatever is the first form of resistance. And they, you know, the claims are that cuts out all the thermal loss and indeed some noise attenuation around the outer perimeter. And I've got someone shaking his head in front of me. Do you want to? and that would be quite interesting based on the fact that, you know, in our marketplace, builders tend to build a house to half a brick rather than, you know, a nice and flush. So, yeah, again, it's just something that I've seen on the marketplace before, where you've got these expanding foams that expand out to bridge that gap, if you like, and then you kind of silicon seal over them or leave them. But I think it is something that maybe an Everest or an Anglian or an whoever may well look at in the future to, again, differentiate their product from everybody else's once, you know, we've got to the optimum triple or double glazed sealed unit. Maybe that's the next big selling feature. I don't know. Oh, hang on. You can if you shout nice and loud. Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. Again, I agree. I can't disagree with, you know, a badly fitted window is going to be, you know, may as well put in a single pane piece of glass. I always get worried about these things with the policing of them. You know, it's difficult enough to police energy ratings, never mind policing the installation itself. You know, I think Fens go out and inspect, is it 1%? 1% of all the... Yeah, so, you know, it's going to be very difficult to ever implement a scheme which also incorporates the actual fitting as well. Mark, did you?
I just think on that as well, Fencer are only there to check that the compliance is to building regulations, but also you're right with the addition now of MTCs. But this is only checking government legislation. So something like that of adding a taper, it's great. We do it on certain projects. It's very often on commercial projects that we use it, and it does improve the thermal aspects of the window. However, it's not being legislated for yet. If that comes into building regs, then yeah, Fencer would be able to check that, and perhaps everyone then would be fitting tapes rather than just siliconing up. I mean, is that what you want as well? It may be not a choice that you'll have eventually, but Fencer can't check those things until it actually comes into the next perhaps Part L or whatever that comes out from the government. Good point.
I think we've got time probably for one last question. Okay, this is definitely for Grant. Are companies who are already providing triple glazed units in existing frames with existing hardware breaching regulations, for example, PAS 24?
The simple answer would be no, assuming that they've had that system accredited. It's as simple as that.
Okay, but that would, I presume, be the same for any window.
Yeah, we'll go back to Mark's presentation this morning. He alluded to vent sizes decreasing with standard hardware. You've got to remember that most hardware companies out there now have specialist bits of kit to cater for these increased in sizes and weights. So, no, is a simple answer.
Okay, so, oh yes, Mark, please.
A couple of things on that question, really. I mean, first of all, it's a technicality, but PAS 24 is a product standard. It's not a regulation. So, you know, it's purely voluntary whether a company wants to have PAS 24 or not. It's an interesting one. I asked the same question of Secured by Design very recently, and their view was if your system has been tested with double glazing, that's what you're covered for. If you have PAS 24 and you want to sell your product triple glazed but you've tested double glazed, you're not covered.
Okay, so I think that's the answer to that one. We've actually got 3 more questions, but only time for one. I actually want to cover the last one, so I will read out, but without answering the other questions. I'm not going to read that one out; it's too big. But do we need one? This is the one I wanted to ask because actually I know the answer to this. I think with the greater loads on triple glazed units, should the manufacturers be looking to a higher specification edge seal? Now, I don't know if it's an higher edge, specification edge seal, but you should certainly be looking at deeper sealant depths. I saw an excellent article by the technical manager at Thermoseal that was in one of the magazines, I think, last month. And it's quite clear with all the edge stresses that we should be looking at deeper sealant levels. So whoever asked that question, thank you very much for asking it. But again, you know, I think it was in the Glass and Glazing magazine. It was certainly one of the magazines either last month or the month before. But I'm sure if you speak to Sam, who's in the room somewhere, she'll get you a copy of that, of the Thermoseal report that showed that, and it was an excellent bit of writing, so they answered it very, very well indeed. Okay, I think with that, we're pretty much done.